My stepmom pressured me to delay my urgent surgery again for my sister's plastic surgery, choosing vanity over my pain and health struggles. Story 1. Am I the butthole for not rescheduling my surgery for a third time? Now, our first story comes from his loyal concubine, and it does have an update that follows it. So this is, am I the butthole for not rescheduling my surgery for a third time? So, a little too much information backstory. I, 29, need to have a hysterectomy due to uncontrollable issues stemming from having my cervix removed due to pre-cancer cells all over it. I've been living with near constant periods for 2 years, and my doctor is the one who asked me if I wanted to have the surgery. He gave me a couple of months to think about it, and I finally decided to bite the bullet since my issues are causing daily problems, including having to miss work because I need to be in the bathroom when I really flare up, and can't even go an hour without soaking through an overnight pad. And I rely on the bus to get to work, which takes an hour and a half. I've tried different birth controls to try and stop my period, but because I don't have a cervix, it is just impossible to stop bleeding so much. The first time it was rescheduled was in December, and the hospital shut down for everyone but emergency patients due to COVID getting really bad in my area. Understandable. The second time was when my parents, who would be babysitting while I'm in the hospital, told me they were uncomfortable with me getting it in early February due to COVID and not wanting me to bring it back out to them when I get out. Here's the issue. My sister, Melissa, 30, is getting practically a whole-body plastic surgery less than a month after my surgery is scheduled. She scheduled hers after we found out what my surgery would be and expects her mom to take care of her fully, like a baby pretty much, with how much work she's getting done at once. My stepmom fully agreed to it, knowing it was less than a month from my surgery and knowing she would have to take care of my daughter and me for a week. Today, my stepmom told me she wants me to reschedule again so she can devote her time and energy into preparing for taking care of her daughter. I told her I can't reschedule anymore because I'm about to lose my job with how much time I've had to take off work due to my issues. I also said if she feels that way, could I at least ask her to watch my daughter when I'm in the hospital? Then I'll figure something out when I get out. She got very offended and said I was being rude and inconsiderate of Melissa because I just want to stop having my period, which made me upset because we talked through everything for hours, when I was originally told the last options were to either live with it or to get my surgery. Now, my stepmom refuses to talk to me. My dad won't get in the middle of this, and I'm left feeling like I'm the butthole because I refuse to reschedule a surgery that I consider very needed. So Reddit, am I the butthole? Now I'm going to ask a couple of questions because I like to ask you guys rather than just going to Google sometimes, because I love reading your answers, right? But one of the things that jumped out to me is when she's saying that she gets her period like constant, so she's like bleeding pretty much constantly. Isn't that dangerous at all? Like, isn't there a danger of losing too much blood by doing that? I might be totally wrong, man, going totally off on one, but it's just a question that popped into my head while I was reading that. And anyway, let's just say the dad absolutely sucks totally in this story. I'm not getting in the middle of that. That's a great thing. Very helpful. Cheers, Dad. And next, you rescheduled it once, and they're just playing down a medical issue here. She's getting plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery, and you're getting something that's medically needed. I'm just saying, scratching my head thinking, what the hell? Surely you can see the priority in this matter. Absolutely not the butthole in my opinion. And I hope you do have some friends or someone else to help because your family sounds like they suck. Sorry, I know it sounds a bit harsh saying that, but that's what it comes across to me. Let's read a couple of the comments to see what they say, and then we shall move on to the update. So, Purple Goat in a Tutu, great name, says, not the butthole. Your surgery is medically needed, and you're already delayed once for your parents. But your dad is a special form of something since you are his kid, and he is pushing the work of helping you onto your stepmother. She's a bit of an something for us to delay needed surgery twice. And false explanation says, not the butthole. Yikes. Is there anyone else, like other family or friends, who might be able to help out? OP does reply to this saying, unfortunately, most of my friends and family have moved pretty far away. The only people left that my daughter is comfortable with are my parents. And Cinnamon Pumpkin says, not the butthole. I'm so horrified for you. Your medically required surgery is more important than your stepsister's Kardashian makeover. You need this surgery. Tell them the doctors fear for your health if you postpone it again. I have endometriosis, so I totally get not taking this stuff seriously. And finally, Golden Gracie says, not the butthole. Contact your doctor's office. Explain that you need written documentation regarding the medical necessity of the surgery and aftercare requirements so that you can have the necessary time off work and help with childcare after the surgery. Give your stepmom a copy of that documentation. Tell her you want to be clear that the surgery is not elective but medically required, and the doctor has set specific requirements for help needed after the surgery. If that doesn't work, explain to her that the only person whose opinion counts is the doctor, and he says that the surgery is mandatory ASAP, and now we're going to head over to the update to see what that says. And the update says, and it's from his loyal concubine, "Update, am I the butthole for refusing to reschedule my surgery for a third time? First of all, I never expected to get as much attention as I did. Thank you all so much for your input and for helping me find alternatives." Now, here's what happened. Since my best friend apparently had been talking to her husband, they decided that even though that they have 4 kids, one whom is just 7 months, she will fly him from Chicago and stay with me for 2 weeks to help take care of my daughter and myself. I had no idea that they were talking about it, as she always just talked about how they barely managed with the 2 of them to take care of their kids. But her husband knows we are more like sisters than friends, and he honestly was appalled at how my parents were treating this. So he insisted he could take care of the kids. She would be missing Easter with them, but she says that she wants to be here for me. My stepmom has gone no contact, and my dad has said he will drive me to and from the hospital, but that's it. He's barely talking to me, which is normal on his part as he's very stoic and has never really talked to me much, even growing up. I do feel like a big weight has been lifted, and I'm glad I can go ahead with my surgery. It sucks that my parents don't really care about it, but there's not much I can do. Melissa has always been the favorite, and I think my stepmom going no contact, my best friend doing what she's doing, is really showing me who my real family is. Again, thank you to everyone. And in the end, I think this is a positive outcome, even so, that stepmom has gone no contact. She sounded like a very, I don't know, I was going to say toxic person, but that might be a bit strong, but not someone that I think I'd be comfortable keeping around in my life if they weren't willing to help with this. And the way that they played it down in the first story where they said, you just want to get your period fixed, that kind of thing. It's like, no, this is a medical procedure that OP needs, you know? But well done, OP, and well done to having such wonderful friends. With that positiveness, let's take it on to the next story. I don't know what I'm waving my hand for. Story 2, am I the butthole for telling my mom I'm not going to be her second choice just because my brother died? And our next story comes from Flight Neat. Am I the butthole for telling my mom I'm not going to be her second choice just because my brother died? Me, 23 male, and my mom don't have the best relationship. My parents broke up when I was 2. My mom was trying to do college, so I was mostly with my dad, and she'd have me every weekend. When I was 6, she got married, and then a year later, had my half-brother Tommy. After that, she was canceling our meetups or days I'd go over there because she was busy, missing out on school stuff and then birthdays. I barely saw her after that, and the reason was always being busy with my half-bro. I never even met him, like, at all. I could also tell when I was around, her husband didn't like me. He always was serious around me and never actually spoke to me. Years went on, and it just went to total no talking at all. My dad got married to my stepmom when I was 10, and she's really great. So, 9 months ago, I heard from my grandparents on Facebook that Tommy passed. I don't know the full details. All I know is it was some accident, and he had serious injuries. Thought about reaching out to my mom, but it felt weird since we haven't talked in years. She ended up the one messaging me first, telling me about what happened to Tommy, then apologizing for not keeping contact with me for years. Pretty much, she wants to meet us, and for us to have a relationship again. It just felt off to me that she's doing it only now after Tommy passed. I know some of you are going to say losing him maybe made her realize she was a mom to me, but still, if this hadn't happened, then it's like she never would have reached out and wouldn't be trying. I told her this too, and I'm not interested in us having anything at the moment. This made her push even more, that we need to do this, and it just seemed like she was not going to let this go. So, I said I'm sorry for what happened to him, but I'm not going to be her second choice, and she can't expect me to want her back in just because she lost one child and decided to go back to the other. Maybe in the future I'll feel differently, but not right now. My mom hasn't left me alone, and when last time I talked to my grandparents, they gave me grief about what I told her. I shouldn't have said that to her after she's lost her son. So I'm not sure if what I said was too harsh, saying I'm not interested in her right now just because my brother's not around anymore. And it's like I'm her only option now. It's just how I feel since she dropped out of my life once she had another family. Was I in butthole, and I was just looking around? And I found this comment from someone asked OP how many years it was that there was no contact kind of thing. And they said, I want to say around 14-ish years. For the first couple of years after she had him, we were still sort of in communication, just not really seeing her much. So, she left you for 14 years and then decides to come back into your life once, the other child has passed away? I can't say you're the butthole in this situation because you're very valid in feeling that way, and for saying what you said too. You can't just leave you for all those years and then decide that, oh, I'm going to walk back into her life now I have another child kind of thing. That sounds a bit harsh, I know, but it's just the way it feels to me, and I totally get what OP is saying in this situation. I don't think you're the butthole at all, but G-Man Boyd says, not the butthole in the slightest, in my opinion. This shouldn't be a question in your head, man. Don't feel bad about not wanting a relationship. She ditched you for another son, and now only wants you now that he's gone. OP, this is harsh, but that's karma. Completely up to you, but she doesn't deserve you, pal. And 3 for a girl says, not the butthole, and your grandparents are also the buttholes. If they've watched the situation unfold over years and only now decided to intervene. Even if she's genuinely regretting the past, that's her problem, because it was entirely her actions that put her in this place. Now, you aren't an emotional support animal that she can pick up when she needs it. It's very reasonable you don't want to be subbed in for Tommy when you were already swapped for him once. She's going to need to demonstrate that she wants to get to know you as a person, not a substitute son, and she's got a lot of explaining to do. She made you a stranger. She doesn't get to call on strangers for help. And Anangaranga says, my son died, but wait, I got a spare, don't I? Not the butthole. And Knowlton says, what you said was harsh and probably not the best way to go about it, but she was pushing for a relationship that you were not interested in. She has been an absentee parent for 17 years now, if I'm reading this correctly? If a relationship has started again at that point, it has to be on your terms, not hers. And it doesn't seem like she's respecting that. Keep in mind that she ended her relationship with you, so not the butthole. Your mother needs to respect your choices. And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you think OP should do in this situation? Do you think they were harsh for what they said or not? Let me know in the comments below. Story 3. Am I the butthole for backing out of being a bridesmaid for my friend rather than take off my hijab? And our next story comes from, am I the hijab? Am I the butthole for backing out of being a bridesmaid for my friend rather than take off my hijab? Even after the other bridesmaids bought modest dresses to accommodate me? We have been friends for 5 years, and the whole time she's known me, I've never taken my hijab off around men from outside my family. I've taken it off in front of her before, but only because I was only around women, and she knew this was the case. When we were trying on bridesmaids' dresses, I offered to wear a different dress to the other bridesmaids, or wear a covering over the dress, so they didn't all have to conform to my needs regarding the modesty of the dress. We settled on all wearing the dress that I could wear, as the bride wanted us to match. I was happy that they accommodated me, and none of them seemed to mind wearing a more modest dress than they might have worn otherwise. Yesterday, I asked the bride if she wanted me to wear a scarf that matched the dress or a different color. She was startled and told me she was expecting me not to wear a hijab, because when she said she wanted us all to match, she thought I understood she meant not just the dresses, but that I would not be wearing a hijab. She also said that she thought I would be okay with it since I took my hijab off while trying on the dresses, which I only did because I was only around women, and I was trying on some dresses that go over my head. So I felt the hijab would have fallen off anyway. I said that if I could not wear a hijab as a bridesmaid, I would not be able to be a bridesmaid. My friend is now frustrated as some of the other bridesmaids have made alterations to the dresses and cannot return them, and she would have wanted them to wear a different dress if it were not for my modesty needs. She's also annoyed that I have backed out as now there is an uneven number of bridesmaids and groomsmen. She says she tried her best to make a compromise with me, the modest dress but no hijab. And I should have explicitly said I would need to wear my hijab and not taking it off or trying on dresses. I think she should have explicitly asked if I would go without before committing to a compromise I didn't even know about. Am I the butthole again? It's one of these ones. I don't understand. This person's been friends with you for 5 years and you've always worn your hijab. So I don't understand how they could not know the significance behind the hijab and ask you to take it off and think that would be an acceptable thing to do. You would have thought, again, a friend of 5 years, would have questioned what it's all about and the meaning behind it and why she never takes it off, although she did once, but why generally she never takes it off, and what it means to her. Surely that conversation must have come up at some point. But it also doesn't take a genius to work out that the hijab just doesn't come off for any old reason. You know what I mean? Come on, it's not that difficult. You're absolutely not the butthole in this situation. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with a so-called friend like this, but Throwaway says, God, no, you are not the butthole. It's not like you have decided to wear something to spite her. This is part of your religion and culture. You should not feel like you have to take it off because your friend doesn't think it will fit her wedding aesthetic. Your friend needs to educate herself and do better. Not the butthole edit. Wow, everyone, I'm astounded by how many upvotes my comment has. I just want to clear one thing up. There are some Muslims who choose not to wear a hijab, and that is okay, but in this case, she is a hijabi. And she should not feel forced to take her hijab off because her friend doesn't think it will fit her wedding. The hijab is not a symbol of oppression unless you are forced to wear it. And Atumuk Pressure says, not the butthole. If she knows you well enough for you to be a bridesmaid in a wedding, she should know when you need to wear a hijab. Your culture is not a compromise. And Shady Book Dealer says, not the butthole, she should just let you wear a hijab. I don't see what the big deal is, that would solve all her problems right now. And Lee Ramby says, just tell her to compromise and uninvite any male guest to the wedding, and I guess her fiancé. And Veluxoraptor says, holy crap, not the butthole. It's part of your beliefs, and she needed to consult with you. Even if it's her big day, you don't get to dictate things like that. Sorry you're dealing with that. And there was a small edit update which said, edit, I messaged the other bridesmaids explaining that I can't be a bridesmaid anymore as the bride doesn't want me wearing a hijab. And the responses are coming in very much anti-bride so far. I'm hoping that the others disagreeing with her on this will snap her out of it. It seems like she's overall stressed and focusing on this one thing too much, and hopefully, if she stops to think about it, she'll register that it's not a big deal if I'm wearing a hijab. And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation, and how would you deal with it? Let me know in the comments below. Story 4. Am I the butthole for not wanting to discuss my deceased sister? And our next story is from Ice Edge. Am I the butthole for not wanting to discuss my deceased sister? Before I, 19 female, was born, my parents had another kid, Hannah. When Hannah was 8, she died due to an accident. I was born 2 years later. Growing up, she was constantly mentioned. We went to her grave multiple times a year. Pictures were hung in our house. Stories were told. I wouldn't say it overshadowed me in any way. I still got to be my own person. My parents never wanted me to be Hannah, and they celebrated my accomplishments, but still, she was always talked about, and I was always told I had a sister. Asked how I felt about her, and it took me years to admit to myself that I feel nothing for her. I never met her, and due to her death, she's always been made into this saint-like figure. It's like she's the person I've watched documentaries about. I have respect for her, but I don't consider her my sister. If others ask if I have siblings, I say no. Now that I'm living on my own, I don't visit Hannah. I don't display the pictures of her that my parents gave to me over the years. I told a few close friends and my ex as I felt they had the right to know, but outside that, there's nothing to discuss. Recently, my mom was talking about Hannah a lot. I've told her before that I don't want to talk about Hannah anymore, but she doesn't listen. The other day, she kept going on about a story I've heard a million times, and I said, I thought I told you I was done talking about her. My mom replied, she's your sister, and I said, technically maybe. My mom got really offended and I pointed out we weren't even raised together. I don't know her, I feel nothing for her. My mom started crying and called me heartless. She said that I don't have to discuss Hannah, but she's not going to stop just because I want to pretend she never existed. My dad has said what I said about Hannah is near unforgivable, and I need to reevaluate my priorities. Am I the butthole? I kind of come into this one thinking about, it's kind of heartless, some of the things we're saying to her parents, but at the same time, they were also crossing boundaries. OP doesn't want to talk about their sister. As I said, they don't really know her, and I can totally get that they didn't know them growing up. And it's like they've been watching a documentary their whole life about this person, but don't really know them. So how can they feel any love for them in some sense? But at the same time, I think that OP does need to have some empathy for their parents because that must be an absolutely tragic and horrific thing to go through and live with every day, and I don't think it's something you could ever get over. But also, from the parent side, I think they also need to respect OP's boundaries and the fact that they don't want to talk about her anymore. It must be pretty awkward when you're feeling that way about, the sister that's passed away, and they keep bringing it up in a way when they're trying to make you have feelings for that person. But there's nothing there, It must be an awkward situation. And I think there is something to be learned from both sides in this particular story, that the parents need to learn that they have boundaries, and that OP needs to learn that they need to have some sort of empathy for the parents too. And then, things could work out, and they could have some sort of normal relationship without having this keep coming up all the time. And that's just my feelings on it. It might be totally wrong, but I'm always happy to be educated and, that. Let's move down to some comments to see what they say. And Iaki says, you're the butthole. I understand your view here, and I don't really think you're in butthole, but in this situation, it is you. You feel nothing for her, but your parents do. They raised her until she was in her 2nd or 3rd grade, and then she died. Their baby died, dude. People say it's the worst possible thing to go through in your life. They need some way to get through it, so I totally understand how you might not feel anything for her yourself, but in my opinion, it isn't that hard to humor your parents a bit about their dead kid. And Easy May says, no one's in butthole here. If you don't want to talk about her, that's fine. In my honest opinion, it was kind of rude of your mom to keep talking about it after you repeatedly told her that you don't want to talk about her. And it was probably frustrating to just have your parents stuck and focused so far on the past. You deserve her full attention too, and it's frustrating for you to have to share it with someone you've never met, and she's not going to stop talking about it. So you could just leave whenever she does it. And Kitty Lilith says, no one's in butthole here. Both sides are perfectly within their rights. It's just a shitty situation all around. If it were me, I'd apologize for hurting their feelings, but mention that I have my boundary. They're, of course, free to speak about her, but you're under no obligation to engage. It's been a long, long time. My mother died young, and it traumatized me, but I went through grief counseling and found healthy ways to speak about her with my family. I don't talk about her much to people who have never met her, regardless of their relation to her or myself. And KDN says, you're the butthole for expecting your parents to just stop with their deceased child. They raised and loved her for 8 years and then lost her. That's fine if you don't want to talk about her, but you never ever get over the loss of your child.